Welcome back to Terrible at Fishing, everybody. All right. What a great week this was. I don't know what your week was like, but crazy week, actually, when you think about it. I mean, last week we had Halloween. This week we had the elections, so hopefully y'all got what you wanted. From sweetness to maybe sweetness or sourness, I don't know. But last weekend, my wife and a couple friends of mine, we went over to the coast. And we stayed at Jedediah Smith's campground. It's right on the Smith River, just outside of Crescent City. And it was a beautiful Sunday anyway. Saturday it rained. And the more I thought about, what a beautiful river. Personally, I'd never seen the Smith River before. And it was beautiful, perfect for fishing. Although, I kind of look at all water bodies as perfect for fishing. We drive by something, and I look at my wife and go, I could fish that. I could catch something there. Oh, there's probably something there, you know. I don't know if you guys are the same, but, you know. It's sort of like seeing a bee body Mopar underneath a tarp. I will try to outrun a crazy bull just to see what's underneath there. I have to apologize for my lungs. My asthma, as well as many other things, are kicking up lately. So I probably sound different than what I normally sound like. But river fishing, you know, this little boy, his name is, he's still around, Jonah. I met him. And I looked to see what he was using on that river. He was using a very heavy spinner. And so I pulled out my tackle box and I gave him a hookup bait, a really good bait made down in San Diego. Over at Parker's, they sell it, and I discovered them over at Parker's, and these things are fish magnets. I don't know how. It's a tube jig is what it is, but they work really well. So I gave Jonah one of my hookup baits, appropriate size, and then I told him how to fish it. And cast it up. It's 1/16 of an ounce. And just let that thing just flow down with the water in front of you and past you, and then bring it back to you. And sort of work that radius right there. And try to not throw it directly in a current, but just outside the current. And so fishing a river is, well, it's very intense. I would say river fishing is intense. It's different from lake fishing, which is more, I don't know, calming, I guess I would say. River fishing is, there's a lot of motion involved. It's not just you, but it's the river and the sound of the river. So when you're on a lake, it's still, it's placid, there's no sound. And the only movement you put or you see out there is the movement you're creating on a lake. But in a river, that's different. You go out there with some waders, walk out there, and now water is running by you. It's rushing past your legs. And that in your mind creates motion. And then you're throwing your line out there. And it's just laying it down onto the water. And then your line gets caught in the water. And it starts traveling. Now you've got water rushing past your legs. Your eyes are seeing the river move. Your body's feeling the river move. And your bait is going along with the stream. And then it hits. That's fun. And now you've got, if you're fly fishing, you got all this line. You're just working it, and you're letting that thing just sort of you're keeping the line tight, but keeping them on the line. You're reeling it in, and you've got a very light line on it. Usually 2, 4, maybe 6 pound, but typically I use a 4 pound, 2 pound tippet, and you're tiring this fish out. The fish then starts to go around different rocks, comes up onto, travels up and down that stream. And because the stream is moving, the river's moving, the sensation in our minds is an acceleration of speed. Sometimes that causes us to make some mistakes, like pulling too tight, reeling too fast, and not letting that line go out. And then we lose our fish because we may break them off. That happens. Or we don't control his direction. So river fishing, well, to be honest, it's quite exciting. And it's a challenge. We are now coming into the winter, and river fishing is going to pick up. And we're going to find these little creeks. We're going to find these little rivers, or bigger rivers. Some rivers are off, out of bounds right now because they're closed for the season, but most rivers are not. And it's time for me to put on my waders and walk out there as soon as I can get my lungs back in order and start working those rivers. That's the beauty of our area. Look at all the rivers we have. The water is surrounding us here in Klamath Falls. And I just love that. Half a block away is the Link River. And the Link River's a pretty good little spot. And it's just half a block from my house. Walk down there. It's real shallow rock, rocks and the rapids there. And just go out there and just cast it a few times and just enjoy it. And because of the sensation of motion, it kind of will play with my equilibrium a little bit. I have brain injury due to a blood clot that hit me pretty hard, as well as many strokes. And so I have to really be careful because my brain will see motion differently or more exaggerated than it used to. And I may lose my balance. So last thing you want to do is fill up your waders. You don't want to fill up your waders. You also want to be safe. So putting on a life vest. I know it's shallow, but if I get knocked out, if I fall down and hit my head, I don't want to sink. Kind of makes sense, right? Don't want to sink. And so you put on a life vest and you go out there. Better to be safe than sorry, right? And I probably will look kind of weird. It's a 60-year-old man out there wearing a life vest out in the middle of 10 inches of water. Because I have strokes too. So you never know. So, consider it my handicap vest. My PFD. It's my handicap vest. But this is rather an exciting period for me because I'm learning fly fishing, tying flies, and I get to learn a whole new way of fishing this year, this winter. And I'll be doing quite a bit of it before as soon as I can breathe again, before ice fishing starts. Now, I'm really optimistic about ice fishing season. We've been getting quite a bit of snow up in the mountains lately, and that gets me rather excited about the possibility of having a year like we had 2 years ago, where we had 40 inches of ice over on Lake of the Woods. And I have to get my lungs back in order because I can't ice fish with these lungs. Anybody, if you go into cold weather, the cold zaps your oxygen from your body. It's like a vacuum. It sucks it right out. And ask anybody who's fallen in cold water. All of a sudden, they're gasping for breath. I know. I've done it. And so you gotta sort of get yourself ready for it. Start my injections and get this at least get me functional again before the ice shows up. Now, we don't get ice typically until February, late January. So it's not going to happen anytime soon. But that gives me 2 months, 3 months to get my lungs in order so I can get everything and walk out on the ice and punch holes in it and set up my shelter and things like that. And that's the fun part. It really, I mean, it's like sitting in your living room. Ice fishing is. And we'll talk about ice fishing and what you could do to prepare for it in the next segment. Right now, we'll continue talking about river fishing. So you want to be careful about river fishing. You want good boots, really good boots, something that can grab onto those rocks, something that fits you well. You don't want to have boots that don't fit you very well because you're not going to be able to control your footing. So make sure that whatever boots you put on, that they fit nice and tight, and you've got good, sure footing on those rocks. Now, the nice thing about stepping into water on rocks, small rocks anyway, is that they're not slippery, but they are not anchored, and so you could twist your ankle pretty well, by walking out onto a river, and so you really want to take it, real slow, and sort of look for spots on the river. Now, typically, you don't fish rapids, all right? You want to fish pockets of, more sedentary, slower moving water around those rapids. Maybe down below it or just above it. Fish don't like to, they like to have that aeration go through their gills, but they usually aren't in the fastest pace of water. So you want to find those pockets and cast above the pocket and let your bait float down across the pocket and wait for that hit. You want to try to match the hatch. What we mean by matching hatch is try to identify a bug that's in the area that's floating on the river and then match it. That's basically matching a hatch. Although they're not hatching this time of year, but you know what I mean. You want to throw something that simulates what they're eating. All right, well, let's end this segment. We're going to take a break for our sponsors, and then we're going to come back. We'll talk a little bit more about this and talk about prep. Take care and see you in a few minutes. All right, welcome back to Terrible Fishing. We've pretty much talked about river fishing and my wonderful experience this last week. over in Crescent City. And, people ask me pretty much all the time, why terrible at fishing? Why terrible? Yeah, I've told you why I started the channel. Was to practice talking when I was paralyzed. But being terrible at something is really not that something to be ashamed of. It really sets the goal for you. I remember one time, and I do apologize for my breathing, but I remember one time that I was working for a company called The Good Guys. They're no longer around, but Good Guys was a high-end, middle to high-end electronics company, a lot of audio video stuff. So I love audio and video. I love good speakers and stuff like that. And I was trying to, make a name for myself, I guess, as a manager. In 1991, our Floor and Road store in South Sacramento was taken hostage. And then the SWAT team kind of messed up, and a lot of deaths, and a lot of people were shot. It was a terrible, terrible experience. After that, the Floor and Road store just kept having bad times. Managers would come and go. So finally, I wanted the store. And it was the worst store in the company. It was terrible. Really was. It was horrible. They didn't want to give it to me because, I was a white guy. And it's a highly ethnic neighborhood. It was an Asian gang that took over the store and killed people. And, but I'm pretty tenacious. When I want something, I pretty much work at it until I get it. So they gave me the store eventually. And I turned it. And I made it into a very profitable store. Well, being terrible wasn't that bad, was it? I always tell, managers that want to make a name for themselves, always take the worst store. Always take the worst store. I mean, there's only one way to go, right? Well, that's kind of like fishing. Fishing is nothing wrong with being terrible at fishing. Because when you hook something, you say, wow, that's a pretty big stick I just pulled in. That's not bad. You've only lost 2 lures today. Oh, my. I was terrible at golf. I always bring about 10 golf balls with me. I don't know where they went. They just disappeared. I think they're in orbit. That's how good of a golfer I am. And so, being terrible at fishing, it's not that bad. I like it. In fact, personally, the more terrible I am, well, the happier I am. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Fishing is, I've told you guys, it's cathartic. It's fun. You're out in nature, and the first segment, we talked about standing in a river with the water rushing past you, the birds, the rocks, the sounds, everything. So you didn't catch a fish. How horrible is that? It's not. It just isn't. You can go out on my boat. Listen. You got the ospreys chirping overhead. You got the waves lapping against the boat. You can hear other, songbirds echoing through the forest. So you didn't catch a fish. That's okay. That's okay. Now, I'm here to teach you how to catch a fish. But I don't want you, during the summer, you've heard me, I'll catch anywhere from 50 to 70 fish in a day during my peak season. And then I get really frustrated sometimes when I only catch like 8 fish, in an off season. There was a time I didn't catch any fish. I mean, I really was terrible. Do not get frustrated at not catching fish. You might get frustrated at losing a fish. That can be frustrating. When you reel them in too fast, forget what, I have like 6 rods with me. I forget which rod is in my hand. I go from a heavy to a light and then I break the line, snap the line. It drives me nuts. Or I will, I'll pull a snag out with a drag fully tight and then I cast it, forgetting to set my drag. There are things like that that kind of frustrate me. But I don't want you to get so involved in fishing to where catching a fish is the reason you're out there. Catching a fish is a wonderful experience. I mean, it really is. There's adrenaline, there's fun. I mean, it's just, yes. But in between catching a fish, there's all those other things around. I tell my viewers and my listeners, do not forget where you're at, ever. Because it's there that makes fishing so rewarding. You will catch a fish. You really will. You'll catch a fish. You may catch 5 fish. You may catch 2. You may catch 50. You never know. Every time I throw the line out there, I think I'm going to catch a fish. And that's the beauty of it. When you throw your line, there's a suspense. There's an anticipation. You're working it. You're feeling it. And your hands and your eyes are watching for any kind of wake near your bait. Any kind of sign of life. And then when you feel that little tug, is it enough for you to set the hook? Or you just got to play a little bit longer? There's so much suspense to fishing. It's like watching a scary movie. Watch Halloween. Whatever. But in, 1982 or 3 or whatever it was when I watched Halloween, but it was scary because you never knew when the bad guy was coming out. I think his name was Michael or Jason. No, Jason. Michael. I don't know. I forget. But he was scary. And you know what makes, scary movies scarier is the music. Right? It's like, that crescendo. Or Jaws. Do-dum, do-dum, do-dum. And he kept getting, and the beat got faster and louder. Well, you knew something bad was going to happen, right? Fishing is like that. You throw it out there and you start, you let it sink. Do-dum, do-dum, do-dum. Now you start reeling in. Do-dum, 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 do-dum. You pull little tugs. Do-dum, 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 do-dum. And then, and then you get it to the boat. No bite. That's okay. Take 2. You throw it again. And you do take 3. You're at take 54. It's okay. It's okay. But you know what's so crazy? Take 54 is still just as suspenseful as take 1 was. How can you get tired of that? It can be a little exhausting because you really are expecting that pop, and that's okay. Personally, terrible at fishing. You're really not. In fact, you're really good at fishing. You're terrible at catching. So maybe I shouldn't rename my channel. Terrible at catching. Actually, I'm pretty good at that nowadays. But You can you can enjoy fishing so much when you remember all the things around you. If you're with somebody, the time you're spending with that person, you know, I'm a pretty religious guy, and I'm not. This show's not about religion or anything like that. But when you're in creation, you really look at the details around you and marvel at the intricacies of creation, and it just builds your appreciation for the person who put it all there. And that's the wonder of fishing. It's just being there. We went to that aquarium this last week, and there was a shark. And it was a leopard shark. Now, I used to go swimming at a place, or surfing at a place in Santa Cruz called Leopard Point. Tons of leopard sharks around you. Lots of them. They don't hurt you. But this one leopard shark was in the petting tank, or the petting pool. And her name was Lucy. And Lucy loved being petted. She acted like a dolphin in the wild. Dolphins love being petted. When I'm on my surfboard, they come up to you and you can pet them. They roll over onto their back. I even had one even flip its flipper at me, like it was waving like flipper. And they just love being petted. They love the touch of a human. Very tactile creatures. Lucy was that. I mean, she literally was enjoying everybody's hand in the pool. She would roll over like a dog, and she would jump up to get, just to entertain us. I don't know. I don't know where I was going with this. Oh, creation. That's the beauty of it. I remember the first pumpkin seed sunfish I caught up here. And if you've never, I'm sure many of you have seen it, but if you've never seen one, the pumpkin seed sunfish is spectacular in color. It looks like a tropical fish. Something you would see in Hawaii or the South Pacific. It's just an absolutely beautiful sunfish. The blue, the orange, its iridescence. It's just, oh my goodness. Go to Gerber Lake, you'll catch some sunfish, some pumpkin seed. And it's not a big fish. 6 to 8 inches, typically. Absolute stunner of a fish. So as we go out fishing, I want you to sort of take it in. Take it in. I mean, it's nothing wrong with being terrible at fishing. That means you're catching. You might be terrible at catching. That means you're fishing. You could just be bird watching. It's fine with me. I always have a really nice pair of binoculars. And something will catch my ear, my attention. And I'll put my binoculars up and I'll try to find it. Sometimes I have a hard time identifying something, so I have to find it to see it. It is so much fun to be out in nature with your family and your loved ones. I want you guys to I want you to take your loved ones, your children or your wife or your husband, and sit and listen. Hold their hand. It's absolutely a perfect moment. All right. Well, this segment was all about being terrible, wasn't it? So I want you guys to stay tuned. We're going to talk about, some ice fishing in the next segment. Because, you know what? It's coming up. It'll be here before you know it. So listen to our sponsors. Be right back. All right, welcome back to Terrible at Fishing. Well, we've got Winter is here, right? We're getting snow. Even here in the basin, it's not sticking, but we've been getting snow here and there. Up in the mountains, it has been sticking. When we went Saturday out to the coast, we went through real big, real hard snow flurries up on the Cascades by Lake of the Woods. So that gets me excited. I know. You know, there are people, it's ice fishing is not normally seen as a West Coast activity, but it is. And normally ice fishing, you think about the East Coast, Northeast Coast, Midwest, that area, Wisconsin, where people say "a," and they have draws. Minnesota. So, those are the areas that they have a lot of ice fishing. Now, last year, it was a terrible season coast to coast. Terrible season coast to coast ice fishing. This year, it's supposed to be good. Now, we don't know until it happens. But 2 years ago, we had an epic ice season. An epic. And the neat thing about when a lake freezes is snowmobilers have full range to open it up. Now, when I moved here, I had never seen a frozen lake. Never seen one. So I was visiting different lakes in the area, and I went to Gerber Lake, and it was frozen. Never stepped on a frozen lake before. So there was this guy out there. He was fishing. He was out there. He had all his gear and stuff, and I figured, I'll go out and talk to the guy. So I saw his tracks, and I stayed on his tracks. Now, mind you, I wasn't quite as careful as I should have been, but nothing happened. So I walk out there to the guy and introduce myself, because that's what I do. I introduce myself to everybody. If you've met me, you know me. Now, I'll forget your name in a second, but I get it. Unless it's a memorable name, like Mike. So I go out there and I introduce myself, and he goes, "Well, do you want to try it?" And I go, "Yeah." So he had an extra pole, and he had an extra hole, and I caught my first perch. My first perch through the ice, my first fish through the ice. It was exciting. And I will tell you that when you experience something for the first time, well, first, it's a memory, isn't it? It's an impressionable memory it's something you won't forget for the rest of your life when you have a first-time experience. And that doesn't happen often, does it? The older we get, I'm 60 years old, the older we get, those first times, they are gone. So, this year I caught my first steelhead. Memorable. And so there are things that we can experience still, even at my age, or even older ages and younger ages, that we can have an indelible memory. And that is, well, that's cool. It's really cool. So, ice fishing is something that many in Oregon do. People come from Portland to come down to Lake of the Woods for ice fishing. And Lake of the Woods 2 years ago was ranked as the number one ice fishing destination in all of the United States. I know, you're probably thinking, I didn't even know it froze. I didn't even know ice fishing. Well, in February, I think it's like the third weekend of February, give or take, we have I throw a big ice fishing festival up at Lake of the Woods with the ODFW, Lake of the Woods, and Terra Bullet Fishing. And it is fun. Last time we did it 2 years ago, we had epic ice. We had about 1,000 out on the ice. That's a lot of people. I will tell you some simple things about ice fishing that you need to know. First of all, you don't need fancy equipment. You just don't. Yeah, you just need a little cheap fishing pole. Something little, like 24-incher. And you can get that anywhere. Lake of the Woods is the marina is the best ice fishing store you will run across in the area. Why? Big Five, Sportsman's Warehouse, Walmart, nobody else caters to ice fishing like Lake of the Woods. Well, of course, since they are the destination location, they have the best gear. But $20, $15, I think you can get even a simple ice fishing rig for $10. So to be honest, there's no excuse except to get there. But if you can get there, and their transit system actually goes to Lake of the Woods now. I don't know the days, but I think it's twice a week they take you up there. Excuse me, my lungs. And I have a cat. His name is Bello. He's in here. And Bello is a Maine Coon. This is a big cat. Bello's 20 pounds, and he's really large. He's not fat. He's just big. He's a Maine Coon. And he loves attention. That's the way he is. Maine Coons require a lot of attention. We'll talk about Bello another day. Let's get back to ice fishing. So ice fishing. In my book, Terra Bullet Fishing, the last chapter is on ice fishing. And I pretty much scare you to death. Because ice fishing is the easiest form of fishing you will ever do. But it can kill you. So, new ice is the most dangerous ice. Because you don't know how thick it is, right? 4 inches thick is safe to walk on. 4 inches is safe for a human person, or a non-human person, to walk on. 5 inches of ice thickness is safe to snowmobile on. Yeah, it makes a big difference, that inch. You can drive a car on about 10 inches of ice. You could drive a full-size truck on 15 inches of ice, 12 to 15 inches. Well, I will tell you, 2 years ago we had 40 inches of ice. We actually snow plowed the lake so we could have our ice fishing festival because we had so much fresh snow on it, and we didn't want people to wear themselves out trudging through powder. So we snow plowed it. Yeah, 40 inches, you could take a full-size semi-truck fully loaded out on the ice. Ice truckers. So, but you don't know how thick it is until you measure it, right? So, when you go out onto especially new ice, or any ice for that matter, you've got to wear really warm clothes. My dry suit is also a flotation suit. My pants are flotation, and so is my jacket. I also wear APFD. So if I do fall through the ice, I do not sink. And you have to take this stick, basically I take some rebar, and I'm just pounding the ice in front of me, pounding, trying to chip it up, making sure that it is not going to break through. And then every, 25 feet or so, I'll dig a hole. I'll punch a hole in and measure it. Now, and then I'll keep going further and further until I get to something that's less than 4 inches. And I know that's where I stop. Now, ice does not freeze perfect all the time. I mean, just ice can have variables in thickness. Ice can also freeze in layers, and it becomes like a wafer. And it can break. Even though it's thick, it's more fragile. Clear ice is a solid block. And so when you punch a hole in it, you're trying to pay attention to the clarity of the ice, and then how your drill punches through it. Now, does it drop a little bit and then continue? Drop a little bit and continue? Well, that tells you a lot. So when you get out on the ice, you got to really be careful. And that's why I kind of scare you in this last chapter of my book, because I don't want anybody to have problems, fall through the ice. We also have ice picks with us. So if we do fall through the ice, we can pull out our ice picks and punch them into the ice on the top of the lake and pull ourselves out of the water. Now, I have respiratory issues. So as soon as I hit cold water, I cannot breathe. I have about 10 seconds to get myself out of the water. And the nice thing about having a big giant piece of rebar with me, if I fall through, the rebar becomes a chin up for me. So I can put it across the hole where I fell through and push myself up out of the water. There are I know sounds kind of scary. I know. But I am talking about common sense. Having your whistle with you. I have a whistle right in my breast pocket. And if anything goes wrong, I can use my whistle. And my watch is also a Garmin, and it allows me to hit emergency and then send out a signal. But you have to be very careful when going on ice. But let's say all is good. You're making your way out there, and life is good. You got your sled with all your gear on it. You're dragging it behind you. I have a big sled, and it is it's just pulling. And I'm punching, drilling, drill, until I get out there. Now, at Lake of the Woods, the Goldilocks depth is 16 feet. If you go to find a spot that's 16 feet deep, you've got the Goldilocks spot. All the fish travel below you. One way or another, they will travel below you. And that is where I set up camp. And when I mean camp, I mean it's really do. And I've got a ice fishing shelter. It pops right up. It keeps me really warm. I don't even wear my jacket on the inside. Gets up to about 75 degrees in my my shelter. So we're going to end this segment here. And we're going to continue talking about ice fishing in the next segment. So I want you guys to stay tuned. And I know, if I haven't scared you off the channel yet, come back after these messages and we'll talk about how to catch fish. And with what fish finders were really made for. All right, see you soon. All right, welcome back to Terrible at Fishing. I didn't scare you away, did I? Because I don't want to scare you away. But I will tell you, I mean, like I told you, 2 years ago, we had about 1,000 people on the ice. Nobody fell through. We were good. 40 inches of ice, nobody had to worry about it. But I will, at Lake of the Woods, too, they rent shelters. They will punch holes for you. When it's that thick, pay the $5 and have them punch a hole for you. Because you don't want to manually grind that hole for 40 inches. You just don't. I ain't got that much. It'll take you a half hour to do it. So I have a motorized one, and I just pop it in, and they do too. So have them do it for $5. Now, that brings me to augers. Okay, an auger is usually about 8 inches. The auger bit, and you can get a manual one where you crank it yourself, and it'll work its way in. It'll pull itself into the ice. And when you're down at about 10 inches or whatever, it's fast, it's easy, piece of cake. But if you're going to be punching through 2-3 feet of ice, just have, if you don't have a motorized one, have them do it. Just have them do it. They'll come out with their snowmobile and punch it for you. I have a motorized one made by Clam, and that's so much easier. Typically I will punch 2 holes. Now, if you have a multi-fish license in the state of Oregon, when you're ice fishing, you can have up to 5. So if you have a 2-pole license, ice fishing allows you 5 poles. And there's these things that are automatic called pop-ups. And then, the pop-ups, you set them by the hole, and a little flag pops up when you have a fish on it. I don't do that. For one, I don't like running to my hole. So I just sit in my little tent and I fish. But I punch 2 holes. Now, why do I punch 2 holes? Because a fish finder called a flasher. All right, a flasher. Now, lots of companies make them. Well, several companies make them. I happen to have one made by a company called Markham. And Markham is a great flasher. Sounds obscene, but it isn't. A flasher basically is a round dial, and it's highly sensitive. It's what we call an A-scope. It looks straight down below you, and it's very, very sensitive. So we usually use a 1/64th of an ounce jig. I mean, we're talking, or even 1/80th of an ounce. Really tiny jigs. A normal fish finder cannot see that, but a flasher can. And so when we drop our jig down through the hole, I have a second hole right next to it where I've got my transducer for my flasher in it. Transducer is the sonar item, and it's down right next to it. And I can watch my little itty bitty jig fall. I tell you, this is the coolest thing ever. This is a video game, okay? And if this doesn't get you hooked on fishing, nothing will. Because it's a video game. So all you young ones, you will love this. But even us old guys, we like it. And you can watch your little jig fall. You can see it on your little radar. And it just, you watch it go deeper and deeper and deeper. And then all of a sudden, because on your flasher, you can see the bottom of the lake. You will see fish see your jig drop. And then they're going to start coming up. And you're going to see them get real interested in your bait. And so when you drop it, you're going to stop it. And the fish is going to come right up. And then it becomes bright red around your jig. And any second, you're going to feel a very very light nibble. That is the bite. In cold water, strikes are very subtle. And when you feel that little nibble, you set the hook and you reel them up. And that's it. You caught a fish. You got to see the fish react to your bait. And you knew exactly when they were going to hit it. And you pull them up through the hole. Tell me that ain't fun. I mean, that's just fun. I mean, it's a video game that is not virtual reality. It is reality. We're not just VRing it. Nope, we're R-ing it. That is one of the coolest things. And, you know, it's funny. Well, it's not funny. But if I see people on the ice, I'll pick up my fish finder and I'll walk over to make sure they know where their bait is. Typically, we're going to be fishing a foot or two off the bottom. But I want them, usually, if they're not catching anything, they're not deep enough. They think it's deep because they can't see it. But it's not deep enough. And so when I show them, you know, where their bait is, I tell them, okay, lower it. We're watching it. I go, now there's a fish. Wait for it, and then they catch it. Another nice thing about having a shelter, besides staying warm, is that it darkens the hole. So there's no light coming through the hole. So you're in the dark, and so is the fish. And so when you have a tent around you, and you shut the flap, everything, you got a light, on in there, so you're not in the dark. But sunlight is not emanating in through the hole, and it allows you to catch more fish. It's dark down there. It really is. It's really dark under a lake, that is iced over. And that's the great thing, too, because you will catch German brown trout. You'll catch salmon, kokanee. You will catch a lot of different fish that like to hit in the dark. And it's fun. I mean, it's a huge variety. We usually catch crappie about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And so it's just fun. Ice fishing's very relaxing. I usually play a little music in my tent. Little beef jerky, Dr. Pepper. I'm good to go. Dr. Pepper and beef jerky, those are my two favorite things when I go ice fishing. So, and it's just, you got to try it. You just got to try it. It's cheap to rent that stuff. It really is. I think it's $15-20 to rent a shack. Have them, for the day. Okay? It's not much. And then have them punch a hole for you. And let them do that. And have them pick a spot for you. I always pick good spots for the guests. I know where the fish are. No big deal. It's real simple. Because their job is to make sure you have a memorable experience. That's what the staff's job is. So they're going to try to put you in a hot spot. And unfortunately, I'm like the best fisherman at the resort. But on ice fishing weekend, in February when we have the festival, it's awesome. It's like connect the dots. It really is. It's like connect the dots. Now, some people, they will try like glow in the dark baits, luminescence. That sometimes helps. I usually use a power bait called Tequila Sunrise. It's black and purple, I think. And Tequila Sunrise is my favorite bait for ice fishing. I mean, little pieces of worm work really, really well. But both of them, I don't like messing with worms because they don't last. But Tequila Sunrise does. And I'm telling you guys, we live in one of the nicest areas in Oregon. We have great ice fishing, not just at Lake of the Woods, but I already told you about Gerber Lake. Diamond Lake is a treasure trove of giant trout. Also Fish Lake. Fish Lake is really good for trout too. So those are all four of those lakes are great ice fishing lakes. So we really, I mean, we've got ice fishing within 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 45 minutes, hour and a half. And you can really give yourself a memory that you've never had before. A brand new experience. Ice fishing. It is, I can't tell you, every time I teach people how to ice fish, how appreciative they are. And the memory that they've, I find it so rewarding to help people have memories. Pleasant ones, hopefully. So, that's ice fishing. It really is. And as we get closer to the season, we'll talk more about ice fishing because I don't want you to not know that you can do it. Because every one of you can do it. The reason we have the festival in February, because it's usually a very reliable, safe ice time. Sometimes we can get ice in December, late December. 2 years ago we had that. And we had such an unusual freeze that there was no wind for a week and sub-zero temperatures. And the ice froze clear, like a piece of glass. If you can imagine the lake, crystal clear glass on it, 5 inches thick, walking out on this window pane, looking down below you and seeing the bottom of the lake and the fish. It's like walking on an aquarium. It was a perfect freeze. Very few times has this ever happened because you get a lot of particulates in the water with agitation. That week we didn't, 2 years ago. So people would come to the marina. I was working in there. I go, can I show you guys something you've never seen before? They go, yeah. So I take them down the ramp to the lake, and I walk out onto the lake, and I go, come here. They go, no. I go, look, I'm a fat guy. I'm not falling through. I wouldn't ask you to do it if I didn't think it was safe. And so they put their feet on the lake, this crystal clear glass, and they shimmy. They're so scared with their knees bent, and they're shimmying out there. I go, come on. And I go, now, look down. And they look down like they were on the precipice of a cliff or on a high rise. And they look down and they see the bottom of the lake. People were ice skating on the lake. And they see fish down there. It is sometimes, those people that got to see that week will never forget what I had them do. You have to see it and experience it to believe it. My wife thinks I'm nuts for sitting on ice and fishing. But it's not that bad. I don't actually sit on the ice. I have a chair. Always bring a chair. I'm not going to sit on ice. I'm going to sit on a chair on the ice. But that's that. I want to thank you guys for listening this week. Please visit my channel, Terrible at Fishing on YouTube, and punch in ice fishing, and see what I'm talking about. I want you guys to all take care, leave the area cleaner than you found it, and tight lines to each and every one of you. Take care.